caught part one of this episode, you know that one was really more of a heart opening. I shared how my devotion to people had started overriding my devotion to God. So today we're getting into the how, what it looks like practically to lead from devotion and discernment, which is something that I had gotten a little bit out of balance on. So I created this part two so we can go a little bit deeper on what it looks like. I'm calling it the 3 pillars of holy resourcing: structure, stewardship, and spirit. And I would like for you to think of them as a rhythm you can return to every week, which is the way that I have put it into place in my life. So let's get into it. This is going to be another one of those more raw episodes of mine. And while I love talking about HR foundations, this is the kind of stuff that brings me a ton of passion and a ton of fire. And this translates directly into my business. But to me, if you aren't a healthy business owner, business leader, employee, wife, mother, friend, daughter, whatever, sister, whatever it looks like, then you're probably not really thriving in life. And so all of this stuff matters. And so let's get into it. The first part that I want to talk about is how order creates peace, or at least it does for me. And I'm going to argue that it probably does for you. Structure is not control. It's clarity. Chaos is expensive. And while this show is don't waste the chaos, and I want you to embrace it, it usually means stuff's going wild. We might as well go ahead and get what we want out of it. But at some point, we've got to put a little method to the madness. Chaos can be expensive, whether that's financially, emotionally, or spiritually. So the calendar and the contracts and the commitments that you create aren't just business tools. Those aren't just ways to manage your household. They're boundaries that protect your energy for what God has actually assigned you to do. And so I know very clearly when I think of, oh, maybe I won't do this anymore. Maybe I'll sell my HR consulting firm and I'll do something else. And I think through, what else would I be doing? And, I love food. I've had people say, oh, you should start a restaurant. I don't want to work nights and weekends. I am really in a season to invest in my parenting. If you know me personally at all, I am very, very committed to that. I also love being a good wife. And to me, a good wife is a Proverbs 31 wife. And I know a lot of people want to push back on that and, are feeling like that is like the trad wife movement, the traditional wife movement. And I would say, yeah, I don't mind being a traditional wife in many ways. I think we've skewed what we think in the Western world, what a traditional wife could look like. And sure, while I like a good apron or whatever, because I think they look cute on me and I like to wipe my hands on my pants when I'm cooking. So an apron is great. It's not subservience in the way that so many people think. The Bible calls women an Azer. And if you're looking from the very, very beginning, the first time a woman was ever mentioned in the Bible, it was mentioned with the phrase helper, Azer. So there's a couple of different deep dives of research that I've dug into this. The other time where that phrase of helper is used is when it's talking about how God is a helper to Israel. So do you think God is weak? Do you think God doesn't matter? Do you think God comes second and all of those things? If we are talking about women and the way they are compared to men, in the translation, of course, we've gotten to English. There's a lot of translations biblically of how we've gotten to where we're at. But if you look back to the original translation, that's the same way that God was explained as a help to the nation of Israel. I've also researched and saw that Azer is a way to talk about an arrow to a bow. So if a man is the bow, is the primary instrument, the woman is the arrow. Well, what are you shooting in your bow? Right? You don't need to be a hunter to figure that out. So a man isn't accomplishing his good work without the woman. So we are called We are assigned by God. And me as a woman, I am assigned by God for a lot. I actually had Terry and I had our pastor over recently, and we were exploring membership at the church. And I told him one of the things that came to me when I was traveling in Israel and really thinking about who I was and how I wanted to show up in this next season professionally and personally. I was really wrestling with, what does it mean to be female professionally? And at first I was like feeling like it was going to be a pivot or something different. But what came to me, whether it was, divinely placed on me by God or otherwise, was that God wouldn't give me these innate skills and giftings and then say, only use them in these avenues. Those unique leadership skills and giftings, that strong voice, that self-confidence, only use those in the PTA at school. Don't use those in business because that shouldn't show up in business that way as a woman, or don't use those in the church because that's not an appropriate way to show up as a woman. It would be interesting, right? If God placed giftings on a woman and you can clearly see the giftings. And, let's just be specific to me here. You can clearly see I am articulate, I am strong, I am confident, I am intelligent, I'm a lot of things. And wouldn't it be interesting to think that God gave me those natural skills and abilities, but wants me to use them in these certain areas? You can use them to make money. You can use them to make sure that your home is organized. You can use them in X, Y, and Z, but don't use them in the church. Or, be weary of using them in business when a man's in power, or, whatever the situation is. I just think that we're off on that. I just personally think we're off on that. And maybe that's not your personal belief and this is triggering you in some way, and that's okay. We all think differently. I would just challenge you to think, what makes you know that your way is accurate and my way is not? Are you more godly than me? Do you get more insight from God than I do? Are you more intelligent at interpreting the scripture than I am? Maybe that's true. Maybe it is. But maybe it's not. How would you know? And same thing goes for me. How would I know? So all I'm doing is basing it off of what I read in scripture, what God places on my heart, the natural skills and giftings and abilities that God has given me. And he's given me much to steward. He's given me a lot to manage when it comes financially, and the giftings that he's given me, the blessings, if you will. And so all I can do is do my best with the information that I have. And I just hope that's what you're doing too. I'm erring on the side of grace for myself and for others. Maybe you're right. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe vice versa, whatever that looks like. But for me, I'm saying that the tools that I have, whether it's the calendar, the contracts, the commitments, all of these things that I have created in my life, they're not just business tools. They're boundaries that protect my energy for what God has actually assigned me to do. That's what I'm trying to get to, the root of what God has actually assigned me to do. Peace follows pattern, at least for a person like me. When my days follow a rhythm, and I'll kind of walk you through how I've got my calendar set up, I lead from an overflow instead of out of a fatigue. And when I first started my business, I was just like doing as much as I possibly could, whatever anybody needed, whenever anybody needed it. And what I've learned is that creates more chaos than necessary for my clients and for my personal life. And so if you are leading from a place of chaos and not structure or pattern, you're probably leading from a place of fatigue. So let me walk you through like how my calendar is set up. And I'm always happy to actually show you my calendar and walk you through how I got there. But essentially in the mornings, I set an admin hour at 9 a.m. Now, you probably have a different chronotype than I do. I'm a late morning chronotype. So I'm a very happy little camper in the morning from the moment I wake up. And you could probably guess this, and this might irk you off about me, but from the moment I wake up, I'm in a good mood. I just have been like that. I used to be more of a sleeper when I had my little guy, which he's coming up on 14 years old. I just remember thinking a couple of things. One, I can't drink alcohol like I used to because that makes me groggy in the morning or not feel well. And I'm just not going to waste this one precious life on a hangover. Seriously, like just thinking about that, how many days I just felt off in the mornings back when I used to drink alcohol more blows my mind. Like hard pass. This one short, sweet life, I'm not going to spend my mornings feeling ick and like less than what I possibly can. So my morning routines start before that admin hour for work. I've got this rhythm in my life, whether it's me taking my kiddo to school if my husband's working out of town, or what I prefer is when my husband is in town, then I've got my natural rhythms in the morning. I get up and I start packing his lunch the night before, but there are some things I like to do fresh that morning, and I prepare him breakfast. I like to do that. And then I've got my vitamin routine, and I've actually got one thing left that I need to take today. I'm recording this at about 10 o'clock in the morning, but I've got this whole pattern that I do. I fill up my 32 ounces of water. I put my trace minerals in it. I put my ion biome. And that is just essentially kind of like adding soil, because we're missing so many natural elements in our diet these days. And then I also add lemon essential oil. I prep all my supplements, which I actually prep on Sundays. So I pull my supplements out and my sons as well and get those prepared. Take my separate glass of water and put my creatine and my pre and probiotics, and I chug that. And then I go about my morning routine, whether that's starting a load of laundry. Of course, I make the bed and get the day set up as if we're going to have guests by noon. And usually we don't, but sometimes we do. And that's just how I get my day started. And then I either sauna and shower, or I don't, and I go outside, I do my stretching, I do my walking, I spend my time with my dogs. But my goal is that I'm in here in my office by 9 in the morning. And at 9 in the morning, I start my admin work. I used to not have admin work blocked out first thing in the morning. I might take a call first thing or what have you. And I realized that is silly. I am my most productive in those morning hours, not early morning hours, but in those morning hours, 9, 10 a.m., my most productive time. So I've set aside my admin work and my business development and my marketing work for those 2 first hours of the day. I jump in, I see what's going on my calendar. If clients have emailed, I respond back and say, I'm going to get to this on Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday afternoon, depending on when I have client blocks of time blocked out. And I get all of that good thinking and project work done in the morning. And then in the afternoon, then I get to my client work or my phone calls and my meetings, my podcast recordings and things like that. And so I've got my time blocked off, and the day is such a great flow. I love it. That 1 hour of admin each morning, and then my deep work in the afternoons with one major client project based in there. I'm leading from a place of overflow instead of fatigue. And really, clients aren't mad. If they need me and it's an emergency, I'm going to shift my schedule. But if we're doing well in the HR realm, we've got a good cadence. It's not an HR emergency. It's rarely an HR emergency, honestly. Most of us treat boundaries, whether it's on our calendar or in our personal lives, like they're optional. But I believe that God ordered creation in 6 days and rested on the seventh. If that's the case, then order is divine. It's important. And also, I should add, after that morning work that I've got, my admin and my business development, my marketing work, I have lunch, which is a walk for me, and food. And it's just, I feel so good. When I sit down in the afternoon, I'm ready. I'm actually excited to work on my client work. I'm excited for my meetings because I have what I need to get done in the mornings, and it feels so good. I've, had focused time to love on my child. My husband and I have had quality time. I've been able to get my house in order. That balance that I've got, I feel like I'm on top of the world. And I want this for you too. You can get to it. So once a week, I ask myself, what person or project is tempting me to break my own structure? What is that? And I would say there's times when I'll wake up in the morning and it's an amazing, what I call an intuitive ping. I've learned that from my mentor. But something will come to me and it'll be like, this has got to change. It'll feel so clear. This has got to change. This has got to shift. You should pay attention to that intuition. That's your gut telling you something's off. And here's a simple example. It's not a big deal. It's a silly one, but it's just an example that I've had. I used to get my nails done in a town about 40 minutes away from me. And I really liked the girl, but she took a lot of time. And there was another girl working there that I really wanted to work with. And she was faster and really trendy, but I'd already kind of established my routine. So I didn't change it. I just kept working with that girl. Well, then a new salon opened up in Hannibal, a little bit closer to me, 30 minutes away. And that's the town where my child goes to school. And so I was like, I will switch and start getting my nails done in Hannibal. And so I would schedule it, and then I'd hang out at a coffee shop and wait until my son needed to be picked up, whether from school or practice or whatever. And it was fine. But then a new nail salon opened up. If you knew where I lived, you would be like, what the heck? A new nail salon opened up in the town outside of where I live. I live about 7 miles outside of this town. Oh, we live in the middle of nowhere, y'all, on a farm in Northeast Missouri. But outside of this town, it's a little bitty town. It's like less than 500 people, but a nail salon. And there's a massage therapist in there too, by the way, and she's fabulous. A nail salon opened up there, and it was the girl from the 40 miles away place that I wanted to go to that was faster and really trendy. She opened this up, and I thought, man, dang, I've already established with this girl in Hannibal, and it's fine. I mean, it's good. I like her. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just not as convenient. So I just kept doing it. For months, I've been doing it. And when I woke up one Monday morning, it was like, change that. Change that. Go to this place closer to home. Not to mention, it's probably hard to find the clientele in this area. So if you really want to honor somebody and make it about somebody else, sure, make it about that. But it's more convenient for me. It's more convenient for me. I need to make that change. What person or project or thing do you have in your life is tempting you to break your own structure, what works for you, so that way you can do what God has put you on this earth to do fully, even something as simple as a nail appointment. Are you doing it that makes sense? Are you doing it where it's honoring to you and your day? Or are you doing it for somebody else? Stop doing that. Stop doing that, because you're taking away from your ability to fully thrive and show up the way God's created you to. I hope that you can take that silly example and kind of put that to the side and recognize this is for all areas of our life. What boundary keeps this holy? What boundary keeps it holy? If I really want to be consistent in my structure, then I'm going to only schedule massages, nail appointments, times with my coach, all of these things on Mondays or Fridays, because my client work is Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. That's when my client work is. I've got to stay committed to that. If I start adding things on my calendar on Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, then my clients get bumped to these other areas. Then I get anxious because I don't know if I'm giving them all that they need to get. And I really need to commit to that time so I feel proud of the work that I'm doing. What things in your structure are you doing that's sabotaging your success? And you might think, well, it's not my success, but it's, my ability to serve my clients. That's your success. Because if you are giving what you say you're going to give, then you feel more confident than ever because you're being a person of your word, and that feels good. Or at least for me, it does. It's that vow of devotion. That's how I can meet that vow of devotion. I'm like honoring the contract that we wrote together, and I'm showing up as a person who feels proud of how I'm showing up because I'm honoring my commitment to you as a client. So just think through your day and what you're doing in your day. You might think, well, I'm doing this for balance for myself, but then it's throwing you out of balance for your commitments. So rework it. What person or project is tempting you to break your own structure, and what boundary can keep that more holy? When the structure is clear, we stop rescuing and start leading. And this takes us into stewardship, which is my next point. First point was structure. Second point is stewardship. This is how I want to live. I want to care without carrying. I want to care for other people without carrying them. And if you didn't listen to part one, then which is in this 2-part series about devotion without discernment and how devotion needs discernment, I talk about the scaffolding, being the scaffolding for other people. This is what I'm talking about, stewardship. We want to care for others without carrying them. Stewardship is a sacred responsibility, but it is not self-sacrifice. And I think, I've heard this called Christian woman syndrome. And you know what? So be it. I guess that's how it was showing up in my life too, where you have to be selfless. But when we're selfless and then you hear, oh, you have to put on your oxygen mask first, or you can't pour out of an empty bucket or whatever, your bucket has holes and it's leaking. And if you're not filling it up quickly enough, then you're pouring out of an empty bucket. We've heard all of that, but then we continue to think that honoring God as a Christian is being self-sacrificing or selfless. And that ain't true, right? That's just not true. Stewardship is a sacred responsibility, but it's not self-sacrifice. Here's my role. Whether it's as a consultant or a leader or a keynote or a mom or a wife, it is to equip, not carry. I'm responsible to people, but I'm not responsible for people. So overfunctioning looks holy on the surface, taking over more responsibility than we really need to, limiting our vibration, holding others up, acting as a scaffolding, and then they can't be who they are. And then we finally crumble because we're human. Then they're pissed at us because we're not helping them carry the weight that we shouldn't have been carrying in the first place. Overfunctioning looks holy on the surface, but underneath it's often fear. It's fear that other people will fail, or fear that I'll be judged, or fear that I won't be needed. All of those things. True stewardship says, I trust God enough to let the outcome belong to God, because God's God and I am not. When I stay in my lane, my personal lane as advisor, not executor, I give others the dignity of growth. And I have learned this, whether it comes to employees and me carrying their load out of the guise of mentoring them, but I'm carrying them. And then they can't really step up and own it. And you know what? In a lot of cases, I hired people that couldn't have stepped up and owned it. They weren't maybe as capable as I wanted them to be, but I wanted it for them. And I would listen to people's words, but not watch their actions. When I stay in the lane as advisor, I give others the dignity of growth. So when you feel that urge to jump in and fix for someone else, just do it because you can, because you're strong enough, because you've got the broad shoulders, you can take it. I'm asking you to pause and ask these things to yourself. Have I equipped them to do this on their own? Have I modeled integrity in this process? And what's integrity look like? Being clear about the expectations and then letting them fulfill the expectations. Have I prayed before acting? If these 3 boxes are checked, release it. You've done your job, then let God go do his, which is something that only he can do. Structure keeps our boundaries firm, but stewardship keeps our hearts clean and open and accessible. Stewardship keeps our hearts clean, but discernment, this is where the Spirit comes in. It's what keeps our direction true. So we've talked about the structure. We've talked about the stewardship. Now let's get into the Spirit. This is leading from listening. And I think so many times we want to lead from this position of power, which we do. And God has given us a spirit of power and love and sound mind and not a spirit of fear. But are you listening before you lead? Discernment is devotion turned upward first. So many times we hear a need and I could meet that need. Gosh dang, I think this all the time. I see somebody posting something on Facebook and I could meet that need. I could meet that need. And you know what? Sometimes that's put in our place because we should meet the need. Or we can meet the need. If I see that a family's house has burned down nearby me, and I know I come from a place of abundance. Our closets are full. They're overflowing. Our kitchen cabinets are full. They're overflowing. Let me put some stuff together and make it happen for that person. But just because you can doesn't mean you should. And a therapist girlfriend of mine said, don't should yourself. Don't should on yourself. And I loved that. So discernment is devotion turned upward first. Before I say yes, I'm learning to ask, is this a God assignment? Or is this a Kerri impulse? And I wouldn't have said before that I was an impulsive person, but man, I would say I'm action oriented. And really what I've learned is that is impulsivity a lot of times. Just because I can, I go knock it out. But what am I supposed to be working on? What have I committed to working on? That structure helps me stay in alignment. That stewardship helps me keep my focus on my resources and what I'm actually assigned to do. And then the Spirit is me pausing and saying, is this mine to own or mine to partner with? The Holy Spirit will never rush you into misalignment. Peace is always the proof. And what I've learned is how to feel it in my body. And I recommend that you do that work. I'm not going to be able to save that for you or help you through learning how to feel in your body. But most burnout starts with a series of small, undiscerned yeses. We've said yes, we've said we can, we've said we will. And then before we know it, we don't have the time and space to do things for ourselves. And again, it's, well, is that selfish? I mean, you know the difference between selfishness. Are you nourishing your body? Are you getting enough sleep at night? Are you honoring the commitments that you've made contractually, professionally? Are you being a good spouse? Are you being a good parent? If you have like capacity outside of that and you're able to say yes and that feels right, do it. But if you haven't done all of the things that you're personally responsible for yet, press pause, friends. Burnout's starting with those small series of undiscerned yeses. Spiritual leadership is quiet leadership, listening before leaping. So here's some ways to put that into practice. Before responding to a request or an opportunity, just take 60 seconds to ask yourself, does this yes honor God or my image? That's a big one for me. Will this yes require me to become someone that I'm not? And what boundary can keep this holy? Like if you're going to say yes, what boundary do you need to put in place to keep the yes a holy one? If peace follows, then move forward. If pressure follows, then pause. Here is just a morning grounding ritual that I recommend you say to yourself. You can call it a mantra or a breath prayer, whatever you want to say. Lord, let me serve through structure, stewardship, and spirit today. Let every yes be holy and every no be peaceful. So let's talk about flow and form. Because I mentioned this in my last episode. This is where I'm trying to get to. I'm not saying I've landed it perfectly, but I'm making huge progress. Flow and form are not opposites. They're dance partners. And so many people think the structure, I get called type A and rigid and all of these things. It's frustrating to me because I put all of that in place so I can say yes to the right things. If I don't follow my structures, then I don't have any capacity because work is bleeding into everything. Because if I'm not staying focused, then I feel like I'm in arrears, I'm behind, and then I'm constantly working all of the time. So flow and form dance together. You have to have the form, which is the structure, to be able to have the flow of the intuition and being able to pay attention to that feeling in your gut, or those like intuitive pings like, hey, you could do this, or this is an exciting opportunity for you. Form gives flow something to fill, and flow keeps form alive. Each season is going to need a different ratio. Some weeks I need 80% structure and 20% surrender. And other weeks I need the opposite. I need 20% structure so I can have 80% surrender or flow. Your leadership maturity shows in how quickly you notice when you're off balance, and then how quickly you go in and recalibrate. Where do you need more form right now in your life? And where do you need more flow? And I think depending on our personalities, you're like one or the other. I need more flow in my life because I am a naturally structured person. But I also need to pay attention to my structures and how I'm operating inside of them so I can have more flow. And I encourage you to journal through this or pray around this. And, just write these down. Where do I need more form in my life right now? Where do I need more structure? And then where do I need more flow in my life? Where do I need to allow the spirit in more? You can either journal about those, you can pray about those, but I highly recommend you kind of contemplate that over the next week. Holy resourcing isn't about doing more. It's about leading from alignment. Structure keeps us faithful, but stewardship keeps us humble. And the spirit keeps us feeling free. When I'm walking with spiritual strength, I feel free in my life to really roam about the cabin, to enjoy my life. When we marry devotion with discernment, we stop scaffolding other people's lives and we start standing firmly in our own calling. If we all have this energetic vibration and we're not vibrating at the frequency that we naturally could, we're hurting the whole earth. We're hurting the whole world. We're all called into something different. And I want to live fully into what I'm being called into. Remember, devotion guided is peace. Devotion unguided is chaos. We want to let God lead the structure, and then we want to bring the light into that. So friends, don't waste the chaos of this. Embrace it. Until next time.